Hi everybody, this is Jeremy. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about this field right here, excess tax paid by sellers. So there's distribution risk for buyers, obviously, right? Because you're going to get this unnecessary tax bill. But there is also a scenario where sellers can also receive an unnecessary tax bill. And this is really a judgment call that needs to be made by the individual investor. So let's put some criteria on this scenario, okay? This has to be a security that is eligible to pay qualified income. So we're talking about corporate issue equities, investment funds that own equities, etc. Right? So if you're eligible to receive qualified income, then this situation pertains to you. Additionally, this situation pertains to investors that have owned these equity securities for 61 days or more, but less than a year. Why is that? Well, we're going to compare the tax effect on receiving a dividend versus receiving that dividend in the form of a capital gain. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So what you're seeing here is what I call the dividend premium. That's the amount of the NAV that exceeds the value of the securities. So this is an S&P 500 fund, okay? So there's a value to those 500 securities in this fund. And then, as we've talked about previously, in addition to that, there's the accrued dividends. So every time this fund receives dividends from its underlying holdings, those dividends are attached to the fund. So this fund trades at a premium to the value of its actual securities. That's what you're seeing here, okay? What we're doing is we're comparing the value of an S&P 500 investment fund to the value of the S&P 500 stocks. Well, for those of you that have MBAs and understand investing, we would think that there's no difference in the price movement of these two securities because one equals the other. However, that is not the case. What you're going to see is that the investment fund appreciates faster than the underlying index. Well, why is that? Again, these are the dividends that are being collected and accrued to the NAV. That's what you're seeing here. You're seeing dividends collected, accrued to the NAV, and what you're seeing is the difference in price from a fixed price point of the fund versus the index. Now, what do you think this big drop is right here? If you were to look at this fund and when it pays its dividends and capital gains, that's the ex-dividend date. So this fund collects all these dividends and then they pay them on the ex-dividend date. That's how that works. Okay, so now let's apply this concept. If you own this fund and you've owned it for 61 days, let's pretend that you bought it right here and you're thinking about selling it right here. Okay, 1031, you're thinking about selling it. If you do that in a last holder of record system, you will not be entitled to the dividend that you earned while you were in this fund for that period. You won't be paid a dividend, right? Because you have to own this secured the day before the ex-dividend in order to receive the dividend. However, you see that there's price appreciation here. These dividends that have gone into the fund have been accrued and pushed the price of the fund up. So for sellers, you actually get paid your pro rata income, but you're paid that pro rata income in the form of price appreciation. Well, what is price appreciation? What tax effect does that have? Well, price appreciation creates a capital gain. A capital gain is when you buy a security for one price and you sell it for a higher price. That difference between what you bought it and what you sold it for, that is a taxable capital gain. Remember before when I said this situation applies to people that have owned it for at least 61 days, but less than a year. Do you see where I'm going here? Okay, so you have two choices if you want to sell this fund here. You can sell the fund here, and if you do, you will pay short-term capital gains rates. If you own a security for less than a year and you sell it for a profit, you're going to pay short-term capital gains rates, which is equivalent to ordinary income, the very high tax rate we've talked about in the past. However, there's a second choice here. If you waited another month or two and waited for that dividend to be paid, because you've met the holding period requirement of 61 days or more, that dividend is going to be taxable to you at qualified income rates, which is roughly half of the ordinary income rate. That's what the excess tax paid by sellers is. Okay? That basically says if you sell this security today, you will pay $1,100 more than if you were to sell that security after the dividend pays. So let's look at this SPY example. I can see that this dividend is going to pay in 10 days. Okay. So if I sell it now, I'm going to pay $1,100 more tax than I would if I just wait 10 days and wait for the dividend to be paid. That's a pretty substantial tax savings. So unless you have a pretty good reason not to sell this stock, maybe you should just hold this stock, wait for the dividend to be paid, and then collect that income in the form of a qualified dividend versus a short term capital gain. Okay, let's very quickly sum up what we just talked about. I know it's a little complicated, so you might want to take some notes on this. And if you have other questions, I've written an article about this. Simply click on learn more and it'll take you to an article where it explains this in detail and in writing. Sometimes I know for me, it's helpful for me to see things in writing sometimes. The excess tax paid by sellers is the increased taxes that you will pay if one, the security is eligible to pay qualified income, two, you've owned the security for at least 61 days, and three, but you've owned it for less than a year. So greater than 61 days, but less than a year. If you sell this security now, before the dividend is paid, you will pay $1,100 more in tax than you would if you wait another 10 days and wait to receive that dividend as an actual dividend payment. That is the excess tax paid by sellers. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope you find this technology useful to save you money and allow you to keep more of what you earn. Please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, ring the bell so that you can be notified as we produce other videos that help investors save money. You can also follow us on Twitter at FairShares Inc. Thank you so much and have a great day.